You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb in Real Estate Show with Stan DeFreitas, the dad, and James DeFreitas, the son. For the next hour, call in with your questions about gardening, growing your favorite veggies, and growing your profits in real estate. Call them anytime at 727-254-7127. That's 727-254-7127. And now, your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
And I am the dad, Stan DeFreitas, Mr. Greenthumb, and you are my great son.
And of course, I am James DeFreitas, and of course, we are here each and every week, and we talk a little bit about gardening and a little bit about real estate. And people always say, well, how do the two go together? Well, they go together because you often don't care about your garden until you own some real estate. So that's how I feel those two fit together nicely. One of the things I might also have you do for those computer savvy people, and again, if you have a smartphone, you can certainly point your browser to askmrgreenthumb.com. That's www.askmr, that's M-R, greenthumb.com. And when you go there, you can click on the Ask button, and you can, of course, send us a question, and you can also attach a photo. And of course, that could be very handy. You know, if you're trying to identify a bug problem, or if you're trying to identify, something that's not going right with your grass or tree or what have you, it's a very nice free service that we offer. We usually get back to folks within 24 hours, sometimes 48 hours if it's like over the weekend or something like that. But be patient. We do get back to people, and we take it very seriously. And of course, that service is at askmrgreenthumb.com.
Well said. Just had a call the other day that came in, actually through the Greenthumb website, and they had their palms are dropping fronds, and it is a coconut palm. And from her description, and she actually sent me some pictures, it looks you're getting one frond at a time that's falling, and it's not just the bottom fronds. Typically with the bacterial-like diseases, and we could put the bronzing in there, we can call it Texas Phoenix decline. A similar disease would be the lethal yellowing. They're all bacterial-like. They don't really have true cell walls. They kind of invade the cells, which makes them almost on the verge of being a virus, because we think of viruses actually getting in and taking over the cell and causing replication. The problem is with those cells, and in her palm, and I described to her, when you get all those vascular bundles, when you look at a palm and you cut it down, it's all a bunch of straws.
Soda straws.
Like soda straws. And if they all get clogged up, the tree looks like it's not getting water and it's not getting fertilizer, because it's not. You're not getting now they don't have the typical phloem and xylem,
but nutrient transport is being blocked.
It's being blocked.
Right.
And so the tree looks like it's being starved to death, and in a sense, it is.
Right.
Only.
And that's one of the things, too, it's a very good point that we might mention, too, is that when we go out and we look at hardwoods, traditional hardwoods, and even softwood trees, but traditional hardwood trees, when we're going out there and we find that there are wood-boring beetles, and again, we encourage everybody to take a minute, go through your yard. It doesn't take that long. If you really, and again, do it, early morning, do it, in the afternoon, but, try to make sure you still have good sunlight. But go around and look to see if you have little BB holes or even larger holes, and see if you have running sap, if you see bark that is just sloughing off in weird ways. Odds are then you have wood-boring beetles. And one of the things that happens is that when Stan and I come out and treat your tree, one of the things that we'll often do is we'll treat the tree with injector capsules. And one of the things that is pretty important is, now people get excited about certain things that happen during that process. And it's things that they don't think are taking place internally within the tree itself, which are hydraulic forces. As the tree is taking in either a chemical, pesticide, or taking in a nutrient, it once it has that mixture, it can even push those capsules right out because of how great the forces are. Now, some trees' forces are greater than others. Like we see it happen more like with a Ficus nitida. If you don't know what that tree looks like, it's in the banyan family. And so therefore it has that long elongated root structure.
Dark green leaf, kind of droopy looking.
Right. And part of the reason that we're treating those trees is not so much because of borers, But we're treating them because of
thrips, which are little insects that have a rasping mouth part. And I say rasping, they actually curl the leaf around them. They rasp the tissue with their particular mandible, which releases fluid, and then they kind of lick that up. So it's different than, let's say, an aphid. An aphid has kind of a piercing mouth part. Mites also have like a little, they'll get on and suck juice out of the plant. And thrips can too, but thrips have a unique way. I don't know of any other insects that really like to rasp the tissue and then eat on it. But because of their rasping tissue, you can see on the ficus family, they almost all curl up very tightly. And I almost say kind of like an arthritic hand. I mean, they'll curl up very tightly, and you're going, oh my gosh. Well, that's a good indication that you have thrips. And sometimes you can bring them in too. They'll say you picked up a new plant from one of our customers down in South St. Pete, said she brought this plant in. She loved the new plant, brought it from a nursery, and you think if you're bringing it from a nursery, it should be, free of contaminants.
right.
But
And
not always.
But not always. Yeah, I mean, that's true too. I mean, you can go to the grocery store. If you have ever been buying pasta for decades and decades, which I have because I enjoy pasta, you will find that sometimes you will buy pasta and it will already have extra protein packed in with it.
You like the Rasta Pasta Man.
Yes, and it's in your. I mean, the nice thing is that's just a marketing issue. So you just got to say, well, this is extra protein infused pasta that you're buying. But often they'll have what is exactly eating on the pasta.
It's a little beetle.
It's a little beetle.
It's little tiny. It's called a pantry beetle.
A pantry beetle. There
And
you
they
go.
love to get into pastas and grains. And it's amazing. You don't really want to know this, but they're allowed to sell many foods that have a small percentage of either grub or worm stage of something. It can be up, I think, like 5 or 10%. And it's within the legal limits to sell it to you.
FDA approved.
Well, of course, they're talking about selling us things now that are going to be like get your insects to eat.
Right. We're already doing that secretively. But the trick of it is put enough sauce on it, you can't tell the difference.
Dip it in chocolate and everything's great.
Exactly. Well, on that wonderful note, let me switch over to another topic that is near and dear to my heart, and of course is real estate.
You do real estate?
I do real estate. Yeah, it's amazing to me. I've got some lifelong friends of mine, and because I've been primarily, again, if you type in James DeFreitas on Facebook, I come up as the #1 hit. And because I've been doing so many videos on, how we handle trees for boards.
Which I appreciate. You do a great job, by the way.
Yeah, but it's a little alarming to me that, hey, do you recommend a good, landscaping company? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm going, okay, maybe I've done enough videos in that space because it's like they don't even realize that I also offer people, buyers and sellers, the ability to go in and buy a home or sell a home. And so I guess I need to switch over and start doing a little more of that.
Welcome to my world. I mean, forever I'd go to a party and people would go, oh, Mr. Greenthumb. Okay, how about looking at this plant over here and looking at my tree on the back?
Right. And as long as they're pouring you another cerveza or wine or vino, I guess it doesn't matter.
Well, back then when I did more, I don't do that anymore hardly because health-wise, I just don't think it fits.
That's okay. They can give you a $100 gift card to Fleming's.
Well, that'd be fine, too. Yeah, I do like Fleming's. That's one of my favorite. We give them a free plug restaurant. Yeah. They don't need it because they're constantly full.
And it's also a major corporation conglomerate, too. So, other than Burns, I can't think of another fine restaurant that's kind of a single horse operator.
I was going to say that's true. And the problem I have with most restaurants that are really uptown, they'll go, well, we're so busy, we really don't need to do stuff with you. I said, wouldn't you love to have Mr. Greenthumb endorse your restaurant? Talk about your fresh veggies?
No, we don't want that. No, that would be bad.
We'd get too many people.
We'll get too many people, and then we'd have a problem. But anyway, so here's a real estate question that's interesting and something that it has a little bit of a negative connotation, I guess. And, of course, this show is Mr. Positive all around. Glass half full always for us. But in real estate, sometimes it doesn't always work out that way. The question, this is one of these lawyer questions. And I always love these lawyer questions, but stay with me here.
We usually refer those to the lawyers. But.
Right. But, the lawyers answered it. So I can at least repeat what a lawyer has said. And it says, hey, listen, I've got a co-owner that stopped paying their fair share. What do I do?
Boy, that's a good one. That sounds like a question for a lawyer.
Yeah, it does. And what's interesting, and I've read through this article, and one of the things that this lawyer, and again, you found a good lawyer when they're not automatically pushing you to do something that requires legal action. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good lawyer because, so the very first thing is he says, hey, listen, the first thing I recommend that you do is you sit down, try to agree to a lunch, try to agree to some event where you can talk about your problem and to strategize with how to come up with a solution. Then he says, the Captain Obvious thing. He talks about how, well, did you have an agreement in advance that would address this type of scenario? Now, that's a Captain Obvious, very lawyerly answer.
And the answer is probably no.
Right. And the answer is no. Most people don't have that kind of thing happening. And of course, when this question's very interesting in that it poses the question, co-owner stops paying his fair share. A lot of times what happens there is that's kind of code for husband and wife or two partners that are married nowadays. But, you're now married and now one person loses their job and, of course, the other one doesn't have the income coming in. So that's, and again, if you have to use the legal system, and let me say, you don't want to, but you can. But I will say this, you can go and and the lawyer here suggests, this particular outcome as well if you can't agree.
YMCA?
No, you can take it to a suit to partition.
Okay.
But that is not the outcome that you really want because judges really aren't, they don't really know real estate. They don't know the pricing of real estate. And yeah, they'll try to make the other party whole as best they can, but that doesn't always work out the way that you think it's going to.
So you're going to divide the property then?
Yeah, you're going to divide the property, but you're going to do so as per the way the judge says it.
Stay with us as the real estate and plant talk continues here on AM 860, The Answer.
Want to talk real estate? Remember, you can reach Stan at 727-423-4794 or on the web at AskMrGreenthumb.com.
Why choose Stafford Tree Service? Is it because they're experienced, have the latest equipment, and friendly professional personnel? Absolutely. Stafford's positioned themselves as a leading tree trimming company in all of Tampa Bay. With honest professionals and competitive pricing, they'll earn your trust too. In business for over 15 years, Stafford Tree Service is licensed, bonded, and insured to provide you the very best tree trimming experience. Call today, 727-546-8786, 727-546-8786. On the web at StaffordTreeSVC.com.
Biophilia, our innate attraction to other living things. It's why people love plants. And around Tampa Bay, Plants, that's Plantz, is bringing nature inside in workspaces and homes by delivering beautiful foliage plants. Our plants increase oxygen and filter out pollutants, reducing stress and improving productivity. And get you in touch with your biophilic side. Go to plantz.us.
At Dream It Real Estate, we're a different kind of real estate company. We embolden our clients to dream their biggest dreams and partner with us to make those dreams come true. Our emphasis is on team building with clients who become friends for a lifetime. For more information, please go to dreamitrrealestate.co or call or text James DeFreitas at 727-254-7127. Dream It Real Estate is always encouraging our clients to dream big with us today. Welcome back to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb and Real Estate Show. Got questions about perennial flowers? What about issues with closing on your newest property? Give them a call at 727-254-7127. That's 727-254-7127. And now your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
And I am Stan DeFreitas, the dad, Mr. GT, Mr. Greenthumb. You've known me from Florida Gardening and other shows, the Ask Mr. Greenthumb show I did for years on PBS, some on CBS, where James was my director. Now, you sometimes bring up neat legal questions, and I never like to follow up with a big answer on legal questions because, A, I'm not an attorney. We all have our ideas of what we think an attorney might say. But then again, sometimes things have to go before a court and a
Right.
judge and a jury because things have to be decided.
Right. And of course, and again, I'm never giving out legal advice. I'm only repeating the
Sure.
legal advice that's already that's in print. If you want real legal advice, you want Patrick L. Smith, and he's on Saturdays. So I totally recommend you listen to that program. You'll learn a ton, especially as it relates to probate and estate planning and that sort of thing.
And you and I do talk a lot about lawyers and stuff. If there's a lawyer out there that wants to be a part-time part of our show, now we like Patrick, but we may be I'm looking for someone who wants to come in on occasion and be our legal expert on the show. So if you
I think Patrick would be perfect. We'll create a super PAC to motivate him to do that.
Yes, tell Patrick next time you call his show, you should be help sponsoring the Ask Mr. Greenthumb show. Now, we won't put pressure on him that way. But anyway, there probably are many other attorneys. There's thousands of attorneys out
Right.
there.
It's a pretty competitive field. But, right before we left for the break, one of the things I was discussing is what happens when a co-owner stops paying their fair share in real estate matters.
They say, get out. No.
So, I mean, and again, so the article, again, just to kind of finish off this particular article,
Right.
the lawyer is saying, well, do you have an agreement in place that addresses this? And that sort of sounds like, well, no. I mean, 99% of the people that cohabitate or own real estate together probably do not have an agreement set up to where it addresses this. And of
If
course,
you had an agreement, you wouldn't have the problem.
we wouldn't have the problem because you'd know what to do. And apparently the term is a co-ownership agreement. And so that's, it's a nice thought, but most of the time when it gets to this point, it's well past that because you're asking the question. So, and as I was indicating, what often happens is if you get two people that cannot agree and are headstrong about the situation, then of course a suit for partition can be brought. It's not a great way to go because often judges are not privy to what's taking place in the real estate market. They probably will hit their local Zestimate.com and hope to God that's accurate, which it may or may not be, depending on where you live. And so there's a lot of potential problems with that. And again, it's not to say that judges are not, it's not to say that they're not smart. They are smart. It's just being smart in one area doesn't mean you're smart in all areas. As a matter of fact, I see a lot of people making that mistake. You might run one of the best marketing companies out there, but that doesn't necessarily make you smart to be able to pass judgment on any other area. I wouldn't be good to ask a question with regards to engineering. I mean, that's not my area of expertise, so I wouldn't do it. And so that's something that I definitely want to encourage people to think about of what your specialty is and stay in your lane. Real estate agents in particular have trouble with staying in their lane, and part of the reason for that is that we are often asked questions that we have no training in, and yet we're still kind of expected to kind of have some base knowledge in it. And a good example of that, of course, is people will come to us and say, well, tell me about mortgage rates. Tell me about what's an adjustable rate mortgage. People will, they'll ask you these very specific questions, and they'll want you to have very current answers to a thing that changes all the time. The best advice I can say in that particular area is stay in your lane and recommend the mortgage person that you like, like, and trust, and that you think that they should talk to for more specific information in that particular area. The other thing that I would also, that I thought was an interesting topic to discuss, and again, this is kind of another Captain Obvious. The question is, what do you do with loud condo neighbors? Okay, if you live, and this is a very interesting point, because a lot of people do live in a condo or a townhome. If you live in a condo, then odds are, unless you're at the very top, on the top floor, you probably are going to have people above you who might not have the lightest of feet. So you're going to have to get used to stomping. You're going to have to get used to playing music at weird times. If you live in Clearwater, as I do, And again, I can't speak to the entire county or into Hillsborough County, but I can say that there is a noise ordinance. That noise ordinance starts at 11 o'clock at night and goes through till 7 a.m. So you can only have it go up to a certain decibel. I think it's 72 decibels. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's around 72 decibels is the the threshold that you can be at until 11 o'clock, and then it has to drop down considerably during the rest of the hours. But that is legislated in there, and it definitely is one of those things where you have to follow it. So the question is what do you do if you have loud condo neighbors? Well, in communal spaces, you have to remember that what you've done is you've bought into a community. And into that community, that means you're going to have patience for different people and the way that they operate. You're going to have to say, hey, these people come and go at different times than myself. Maybe they're not conversationalists. Now I, on the other hand, have trouble. I mean, my wife gets annoyed at me all the time because I sit back and she says, well, why did it take you 45 minutes to go get the mail? The mailbox is literally 5 minutes from the house. Well, I have a bad habit of checking in with people and sincerely wondering how their life is treating them. Well, that tends to make friends with people, and then people want to actually take the time to talk to me a little bit about what's going on in their lives. And that's part of what it's a skill that I've learned through being a real estate agent, is that you have to stop and talk to people. The question I was asking, is being asked and answered, of course, is what to do with loud condo neighbors. And of course, one of the things that I always try to remind people is that if you buy into a townhome or you buy into a condo, you're also buying into living next to people that are in close proximity with you.
Sure than I like. But...
Right. So it's in most of the people that say that live in a single family dwelling, and that's what they like. And so I get that. And you definitely have to take that into account. If you're not a type of person that has a lot of patience for other people's behavior patterns, then I'm going to suggest to you that you buy a single family home and that you do not buy into a townhome or a condo space.
And there are a lot of people who do get into condos and townhomes that eventually want to move into a home because of that. There's other folks who like to downsize who go, hey, I can afford a condo or a townhouse, and maybe I can't afford to keep up a large single family house.
Exactly. So I guess the main thing for people to do is really analyze yourself before you decide to buy into a communal space like that, where you have common areas and that kind of thing.
So you stay with us as the Plant Talk Real Estate Talk continues right here on AM 860, The Answer.
Want to talk real estate? Call James DeFreitas at 727-254-7127 or go online, aflre.com. Broken air conditioner? Keep your home's AC running smoothly all year long with Easy Breezy AC. With thousands of active commercial and residential customers, Easy Breezy AC is Tampa Bay's most trusted HVAC company. Easy Breezy AC cares about those in need. Donate 2 cans of food and receive $20 off a $79 service call. Go to easybreezyac.com and use promo code Greenthumb for an additional $10 off your service call. Call 727-856-HVAC. Life's hard. Comfort's not. At Dream It Real Estate, we're a different kind of real estate company. We embolden our clients to dream their biggest dreams and partner with us to make those dreams come true. Our emphasis is on team building with clients who become friends for a lifetime. For more information, please go to dreamitrealestate.co or call or text James DeFreitas at 727-254-7127. Dream It Real Estate is always encouraging our clients to dream big with us today. Did you know that Stan DeFreitas, Mr. Green Thumb, can come to your house and examine your plants, trees, and palms? His knowledge can help you become the envy of your neighborhood with lush, green, healthy trees that don't just live, but thrive. Palms and oak trees are part of what makes Florida a beautiful place to live, but they get diseases and are often cut down. We offer ways to save your trees. Call or text Stan today at 727-423-4794 or go online to askmrgreenthumb.com. That's ASKMR greenthumb.com. Welcome back to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb and Real Estate Show. Connect online at askmrgreenthumb.com. Got questions about gardening, real estate, or both? Give him a call at 727-254-7127. That's 727-254-7127. And now your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
And you're listening to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb Gardening and Real Estate Show. And yes, everybody that has a home usually has some gardening or real estate. And usually it's attached to the property. Hopefully you're doing something with it. I really enjoy in my backyard as much as I can putter. You know, we're doing some bananas and carambolas and stuff. You get the idea that I like the idea of eating stuff out of my yard. But I've got some little cherry tomatoes. They'll take the heat. They're doing pretty well. They're coming on strong. Got some lettuce I put into the shade more. Why? Because as it gets really hot, lettuce and stuff can bolt pretty quickly. Broccoli right now probably will go into a yellow bouquet real quickly because it's so hot. But going back to real estate, I think people still say, should I buy now? Well, you should probably always buy now because you know, there's only so much real estate out there. I know I've been listening to one of my friends who moved to California, and for the last 15 years now, he's been telling me, I'm going to wait till the prices get really good in California. And I thought the problem is I think he'll be 6 feet under before the prices in California get to where they should get. Now, are they due for a recession probably? Well, the whole country may be. I mean, it seems like we have both sides pushing us over the cliff.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's like, oh, we're going to spend trillions more. Now, take it to your own family budget. Do you think you could spend hundreds more than you bring in each month?
Right.
If you do, you probably are going to have a problem. The nice thing, if you do that, James and I are both still licensed auctioneers, and we can help auction off your property if you decide to run your budget at home like our government does. But I think it's funny. They go, well, it's not really that big a problem. Well, what do you mean trillions aren't? I can't even imagine $1 trillion.
And to add on to what you're saying, I mean, I looked at the inflation chart recently, you know, in terms of U.S., debt. And it, you can't, and my neighbor who's a very ultra-conservative Republican didn't want to hear this, but I did tell her, I said, well, just remember, we didn't get here with just one party having a spending problem. Both sides have a spending problem. And if everyone can remember, I mean, one of the things that Trump did when he was president is he went out and said, well, $861 billion for the military. It's a record. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be amazing. And he went off and he kept saying this over and over. You know, who did that? Me. I did that. Hello. Me.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I would say is it is a combined effort as to the fact that we, that we have 31 trillion, almost 32 trillion in debt, and it's a massive number. And the problem that I have is without spending cuts, it becomes a bit of an issue for both sides, and namely the people, the idea that just the wealthy can help fix this is not really going to help the problem very much because we don't have enough wealthy people to tax to really fix the problem. So the math doesn't work on that front. So those that think that's the total answer. Now, could we tax the wealthier a little more? Yeah, sure we could. Could we figure out how to close up some of the loopholes so they don't hide their money in a place where, where the corporate tax rate is a lot cheaper? And yes, Apple, I'm looking at you. It would be kind of nice, if they could bring that money back here and we could come up with a tax base that they would actually pay. Because I can say if when they park the money offshore and we make nothing out of it, that's not real great either. So, the idea of just upping the corporate tax rate without giving large multi-trillion-dollar companies an incentive to bring their money back, that doesn't make much sense either. Another thought that came to my mind the other day, I was a person that I saw commenting was saying, well, we need to, they were talking about the fact that China is $23 trillion in debt. I didn't know that. That doesn't make the news cycle very much that China is 23 trillion in debt. And the person was advocating, well, that's fine. Let them go eat cake, And the problem that I have with that is that while that sounds good on the face, think that through for a second. the second largest economy in the world, let's say that tanks and as entrenched as we are, because remember, when we all run our cars over to the big box stores, we have a tough time finding a product that isn't made in China. So again, the very, very high cost that we pay for the low price, that has a big ripple effect on us as well. One of the reasons that 1929 was so horrible is because the Treaty of Versailles was so punitive to Germany that ultimately it destroyed one of the largest economies that was in play at that time. That had a ripple effect on everything.
Sure, and it would with us the same way.
Right.
I mean, if both China defaulted and we defaulted,
The world, as you know, it is over.
it would be a recession of a super magnitude. I
Biblical
would say
proportions.
probably a depression, unlike.
Oh, it would definitely be a depression. There's no question. If two of the largest, it definitely would happen. The question is how bad will our economy be in peril if China's economy dropped out? And it would be equally, in my opinion, it would be terrible, and it would not be good. And if you can find an economist to disagree with me, you can always put that economist's name in the comment section on YouTube or Facebook or wherever this show resides, and I'll be happy to have them on the show to spar with me in a verbal way.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah. So anyway, when we were leaving the last break, one of the things I was suggesting is, what do you do if you have loud condo neighbors? Well, this is another question that a lawyer's answered, and he came up with the Captain Obvious answer, is go talk to your neighbor. I know this is crazy, and the person that wrote in on this question was, well, how do I text them? Because how would I talk to them if I don't know their number? So again, I know this sounds nutty, but younger folks today aren't sure how they would talk to the neighbor if they don't have their textable number.
Start off with hello.
Right. So there's the first issue. The first issue is it didn't even occur to this person to walk upstairs to where their neighbor is and knock on the door and go, "Hi, I'm Mr. Smith, and you sure are playing this drum set rather loudly."
Yeah, you don't need to be belligerent or cause a fight or take a weapon with you.
Right.
Those
Go
are all
talk
probably
to
bad
someone.
things. Yeah.
Go talk to someone. One of the things I would suggest in this scenario, and this person wrote this article, Kathy Lewowski, or Lakowski, I should say, she said the same thing. Go and talk to the person, and I don't know if she actually suggested one of the things I'm going to suggest, which is to go over and ask them, well, could you create a schedule of when you'd like to play your new drum set? Because then I could plan around when you plan on playing your drums. I could plan around it, and then you'd have the problem solved. Another issue that's happening in the real estate space too is, neighbors, especially in communal living. We were talking about this a little earlier, townhomes, condos, and that sort of thing. A lot of them have balconies. Well, guess what happens? We have tons of people out there now with medical marijuana permits. And guess what they're doing on their porch?
I bet they're smoking some dope.
Right. And so what happens is people get annoyed because they want to go sit on their porch and they don't want to actually breathe the smoke. And so what's happening is that rather than finding that textable number, because
your cigarette smells like skunk weed.
Right. Right. So rather than finding that textable number, or better yet, walking over and knocking on the door and asking if he could put themselves on a schedule, although depending on the level of dope smoking, I'm not sure a schedule really applies much, but you could certainly try the same tactic, here, where you go over and say, hey, could you, smoke your medical marijuana, between 2 and 4 p.m., and then I won't go out on my back porch and be annoyed. You could certainly try to get people on a schedule where everyone understands what they're doing, and you can do it in a non-confrontational way. So that's probably your best option. Now, what do you do if the neighbor just doesn't like it at all? Well, you do have, and again, I'm not trying to give out legal advice, but you do have the right to quiet enjoyment. And that's something that you're supposed to be entitled to. So if you're a little bit legal savvy, you could always file a lawsuit, and you could say that you've been injured as a result of not being able to enjoy your property in the way that you anticipated and have a right to enjoy it under. So There's that option, but let me say that's a draconian option. You'll never, ever be friends with that neighbor ever again, and you live in pretty close proximity to that person.
So maybe talking first would be your first good choice.
I always encourage positive interactions with your neighbors. Try to be helpful, try to be understanding, try to accept people as they are. Don't try to change people, and I recommend that even in relationships. Try to accept people as they are, and you'll be a whole lot happier.
Yep, that's true. And or maybe talk to the board. Some boards are strong.
Right.
Some boards aren't. Some boards are run by certain groups that only tend to deal with their own group. But that's another side issue we won't go into at this point.
Sure.
But that occurs often. It's like we favor these people over these people, which isn't supposed to happen. Often I know the police get blamed for that too, that they favor somebody over somebody. I don't think so. I think most policemen, I give them a pat on the back. They're doing a really tough job. You're going out, you're often getting in the middle of a domestic problem.
Oh, it's awful.
That's when you could be injured more. So I understand how that can occur. I think it's funny. I think it was Joey Behar the other day said, why don't they just try to shoot somebody like in the foot? And the lady who was talking to her said, well, that's not how they're trained.
Right.
They're trained to shoot center mass. If you tried to aim for somebody's little pinky, you probably would wind up with more policemen that are killed.
Well, and don't forget, too, that when they're trained, they're doing it under ideal conditions. They're doing it, usually at a range. They're not doing it with somebody that also has a gun firing at them. They're usually doing it without an adrenaline dump.
Sure.
There's tons of other things that I think people are not thinking about that constitutes a very different outcome than a planned shot to the leg, which is rather impossible. I mean, you tell a story about a cop one time, a cop friend of yours. I think he was a karate buddy.
He was a fellow dojo karate person, and he was worked for the city of Clearwater. He had been in Manatee County, and a guy was beating up his girlfriend in a bar. And the guy came at him with a cue stick. And because he studied our style, which was Wei Che Ryu, he actually put his arm up and he could break the cue stick on his arm. We can talk more about that. That'll be our hook.
That'll be the hook to tell
on
the
why
story.
you need to come back and listen to his story, which I know. And I think it's kind of interesting.
We may have Chris Giacondo on when we come back.
All right, let's go to we'll go to Chris first, and then we'll come back to that story.
That sounds
just
like
remind
a plan. Exactly.
Stay with us.
Yep, go ahead.
As the plant talk and real estate talk continues here on AM 860, The Answer.
Interested in having a home consult? Remember, you can reach Stan at 727-423-4794 or on the web at askmrgreenthumb.com. At Dream It Real Estate, we're a different kind of real estate company. We embolden our clients to dream their biggest dreams and partner with us to make those dreams come true. Our emphasis is on team building with clients who become friends for a lifetime. For more information, please go to dreamitrealestate.co or call or text James DeFreitas at 727-254-7127. Dream It Real Estate is always encouraging our clients to dream big with us today.
Why choose Stafford Tree Service? Is it because they're experienced, have the latest equipment, and friendly professional personnel? Absolutely. Stafford's positioned themselves as a leading tree trimming company in all of Tampa Bay. With honest professionals and competitive pricing, they'll earn your trust too. In business for over 15 years, Stafford Tree Service is licensed, bonded, and insured to provide you the very best tree trimming experience. Call today, 727-546-8786, 727-546-8786. On the web at staffordtreesvc.com.
Biophilia, our innate attraction to other living things. It's why people love plants. And around Tampa Bay, Plants, that's Plantz, is bringing nature inside, in workspaces and homes by delivering beautiful foliage plants. Our plants increase oxygen and filter out pollutants, reducing stress and improving productivity. And get you in touch with your biophilic side. Go to plantz.us.
Welcome back to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb and Real Estate Show. Got questions about perennial flowers? What about issues with closing on your newest property? Give them a call at 727-254-7127. That's 727-254-7127. And now your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
And we were talking to you about, an incident that I remember, and that was one of my buddies who was a sergeant in the Clearwater Police was telling me a story about he was in Manatee County at the time as a police officer, tried to break up a domestic at a bar, and the guy hit him with a cue stick, which, because he did way too rue, he could break the cue stick on his arm and not be imperiled. Took his gun out, and he said, the guy came at me again, and he shot center mass. But because the guy was jumping, it wound up hitting the guy in the leg. He said, that just goes to show you, you're 5 feet from somebody, the guy's jumping at me like a kangaroo, and where I shot and where it hit the guy was different. He said, the other thing, the problem is now he'd beat the crud out of his girlfriend. The girlfriend turned around and jumped on my friend, who was the police officer, because he had shot her beloved, even though they were in a drunken fight like cats and dogs just, 5 minutes before.
Right, and that doesn't surprise me. I
No.
mean, the very person that needed the help all of a sudden has become the person that wants to free the person that is the abuser, and that's pretty common, which is one of the reasons why being a cop, every day you're dealing with a problem. Every call is a problem. Otherwise, you wouldn't be needed to go out there if the problem could resolve on its own. So we need to, again, fund the police. And, even ex-President Obama said that defunding the police is a talking statement and something that we shouldn't follow.
And he realized that was stupid for people to say. And so we do appreciate that. I love our local Grady judge. He gets on there and says, hey, if you come and you cause problems and you shoot at us, we're going to shoot back, and we're going to probably, we're going to take you out. Mm-hmm. And, I like it because he's a straight shooter who tells you the way things are going to be. And if you just don't do bad things, you'll get along with him just great.
Yeah, and that's a very important point too, and that you have to follow the rules. And that's one of the main things. You follow the rules, and you won't have a problem. You don't follow the rules, then you're going to run into more issues with the law. So follow the rules.
Just that simple.
Right.
So we're here, of course, when people have questions. Now, you wonder, why should you use Dream It Real Estate? Mm-hmm. It's not a great big name like a national brand that you've heard of.
Right.
We're kind of a small boutique, but you know us, you like us because you listen to us, you trust us, you've been listening to me for almost 50 years. Why wouldn't you want to use us?
Right. Well, and it's an amazing thing out there is that some people feel compelled to buy a name brand product. Okay. So, that's the first thing that I have found is that, people will only buy Hunt's ketchup. Okay. And, you could buy Publix brand, but I don't know if that Publix brand is going to be quite as tasty as the one brand that I'm used to. So there's a little bit of name brand recognition that people feel compelled to. But let me also say you're paying for that name brand. You're also, then the other thing I would say is you flip it on to the agent side of things. The agent side of things is, well, I'm gonna sign up with that big brand, and they often sign up for the very same reasons that a seller or buyer has in their mind is, I know that brand, and because of that brand, I'm leveraging that brand as part of my brand. And, so I get that component of it. The problem that I have is with the major brokerages out there is they really, and I don't mean to sound negative, but they really don't care about you as the agent. And they really are really, you're just a number. It's like, why go to a small college where you could be actually identified by people that work there by your first and last name, or you could go to a massive college where you literally are a number. It's your preference on what you think makes the most sense. Sometimes people feel that a name brand is going to advance them faster, but I don't see where it makes a difference. And especially at Dream It Real Estate. And if you're interested, of course, you can go to dreamitrealestate.co. That's my website, and you can learn more about what we do. And of course, we are a boutique brokerage. And but one of the nice things is that you will get very, very good service, and you will get service that rivals, in many cases, the service you would get at a big box brand brokerage.
Maybe beating it.
Right. Well, and in our case, a lot of times what we're doing is that Stan and I will tackle as a team. So you're basically getting two agents for the price of one. And so that means if you can't get me, you can get Stan. If you can't get Stan, you can get me. We're both as knowledgeable, so we both can answer the questions that you may have. It probably boils down to, I click better with him, or I click better with him. And that's probably the person that they'll reach out to the most. And it has nothing to do with the other person's abilities. That's more of a sidebar thing where people choose things for lots of different reasons. So, yeah. So another question I have in the real estate space that's come up is, and I think this is kind of interesting, is here's the question. It says, does a disability allow a renter to legally stay?
Does
a disability allow a renter to legally stay? And I'll follow up with another part. It says a landlord gave a tenant notice of a non-renewal at the legally correct time, but the tenant wants to stay because she's very close to the health care. What does the fair housing law say on this?
That's a good question.
It's a very good question. And the answer, as put out by the attorney that wrote the answer to this, is no. Proceeding with a non-renewal of the lease in this situation would not constitute a violation of fair housing law. Fair housing law prohibits landlords from discriminating or taking retaliatory action against the tenant because she has a disability. Here, the non-renewal was not related to the tenant's disability, so it's not retaliatory.
But now I would say if the landlord came up and said, I'm kicking you out because you are...
Then it's different.
Crippled.
Right. Or disabled.
Disabled,
and,
yes.
Yeah. And so if you were to, if you were to change the scenario to that, then you would be correct. Then it would be a problem. And then that would be a violation of the fair housing law. But that's not the scenario. The scenario is I want to do something different with my property that I'm renting to you. And regardless of your status of being disabled, I wish to do something different with my property and wish to proceed in a different direction. Perhaps I want to sell it, or I'm getting rather elderly and I wish to give it to my family who doesn't want to rent it anymore. Maybe they'd like to live in it.
Sure. So there's all kind of scenarios that could fit there.
So there's a lot of different ideas that are taking place there. But again, I like to ask those questions because I think that this is one of the things that allows us to build up it separates us a little bit, because I do spend a lot of time thinking about the legal questions that come up. You asked, why choose Dream It Real Estate? Well, that's part of the reason that you should choose us, is because I do try to stay current on whatever the legal situation is. And if I don't know, I ask. Recently, I had some clients say, hey, listen, we're not good at this whole email thing. Just sign for us. Yeah. And I said, and I kind of did this long pause, and I said, and it's a compliment in a way.
Sure it is.
It's I trust you implicitly. I know you have my best interest at heart, and I do, because I treat them like family. And I try to do that for any client. I try to say, well, if this was my mother, how would I handle it? And by the way, if your agent doesn't think like that, you need another agent, because there are so many agents out there that they should be treating you like gold, because that's what you deserve.
I think in your case, you're going to actually sit down and read the
I'm gonna do that.
Contract with them and go over it, because you need to be informed and consent on your own, not letting someone else make that for you. No one should ever make that decision for you when it's not there.
Right.
And go ahead, and we, of course, are there, and we're answering your question. If you have a problem with your we've had people call us about raw land. A lady called us, and she was up in wherever, but she was also worried about she had an easement problem, and she wasn't sure if that was been settled. And so she didn't really let us know about her legal encumberment until afterwards. And we always advise that you do seek legal representation, get those legal issues handled now. Don't let that come back on you later, because that's one of the reasons you get a title search.
Right.
And people for a while there were buying stuff willy-nilly.
Right,
No
they were-
inspection,
They
no
were buying
anything.
it sight unseen, and of course that noise means is we've come to the end of the first hour here, and we want to encourage you to stay for the great Dr. Bill Handelman.
He's great. You stay there. He's a historian. He's an everything kind of guy. But make sure you go out and enjoy your life and enjoy those plants as much as you can.
Want to talk real estate? Remember, you can reach Stan at 727-423-4794 or on the web at askmrgreenthumb.com.